Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the final edition of the Coach's Corner. With me, as always, to my left is the coach, Ian Bain. Coach, how are you?
Doing well. How have you been?
Good. We started this gig about 5 years ago in 2019. We've done about 30 or 40 of these. This will be our last, unless something big comes up and I can, hitch my coat to your coattails or whatever, however that sentence goes. All right, let's get right to it. You're moving on to Bridgewater Raynham. How hard was the decision?
Very hard in a sense that, my decision to leave Franklin was not out of animosity or disappointment or anything like that. Really just came down to a great opportunity for me from a football standpoint, but also for our family in a proximity standpoint, being in the same system as my kids as they're getting older. So it's like, we were saying like that weekend that we got the BR job, but we had to tell Franklin we were leaving. It's like you feel really happy because I'm very, very excited, because it's a good opportunity for all of us. But at the same time, this is really hard too, because there's a lot of people that we have to say goodbye to. My son, I've told the story a few times. My son cried.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, Jennifer told him on the car ride home from school, because I got the job like Friday at 3:30. And so she picks up Michael and is driving him home. He's like, hey, Dad's gonna be the head coach at BR, and he's super excited. And then he's like, oh, he's gonna be the head coach at BR and Franklin. And she's like, no, he still has a Franklin flag hanging in his room. He's still got his row the boat shirts.
Yeah.
And so he gets it now, but it was hard to understand. But that's kind of, I think, really sums up how we felt as a family too.
Right.
It was so hard, but also, that's one of the things where, being around coaches like we both have and seeing the toll that it does take on family dynamics. Sure. And the time away from home, and especially now, it's nice that as Michael's getting older, Riley's entering the school. It's a way for me to impact the school system that they're going to be a part of, and hopefully they can be more a part of what we do, and same with my wife.
Right. I don't think people realize just the additional time of being in the car, going from your house to here and back and forth. I mean, I drive 40 minutes to my work, and I know how much I hate it.
Yeah, and that's if there's not a traffic.
Right, if there's not traffic or an accident.
A game at Gillette or a concert in Mansfield.
Yep.
So yeah, that time.
And that's on top of going to work and everything like that.
Exactly.
Let's talk about the timing of the decision. You called me the day after everything, and so you explained it to me. I think it needs to go out there because people are like, oh, why would he just announce it right before school vacation?
Yeah, I mean, trust me, that wasn't my plan. The interview was on the Wednesday before April break, which again I have no control over. I think it was kind of said I really wanted the decision Thursday, but there was an issue at BR, so they didn't get a chance to kind of get together between the superintendent, principal, AD, and kind of just be like, here was the recommendation of the committee, what are we going to do? So it happened on Friday, and then again, I get out of school at 2:30. We connected at maybe 3 o'clock or so, and then it was, half the kids are already on their way to Florida or Cape Cod or whatever. So it was let's try to make the announcement as quickly as we can, because just nowadays, nothing stays a secret with social media, Instagram, Twitter. And so I did try my best. Obviously, I think people that know me enough to know that I have enough integrity that that's not a thing that I would just run away from announcing in person.
No,
I just didn't have a choice.
There would be zero chance that would stay in the box throughout all of vacation and everything.
Well, I remember when Coach Neely got the job at Franklin, he was coaching in Foxborough, and we're pretty close friends, and he could speak to the story better than I can, but I was always kind of under the impression that a little bit of the cat got out of the bag before he was able to communicate with every Foxborough player.
Right.
And I know it kind of bothered him. So I did my best to try to do a meet in person, try to send a team message out, try to send an email out, try to make some phone calls. I mean, I'm sure some people found out in a way. I mean, again, they're on vacation. It's Friday night. They're not checking their huddle messages from me, let alone waking up Saturday, the first day of vacation, at 7:30. But tried to get ahead of it as quick as I could. And again, that's one thing. I don't regret it just because I didn't really have a choice. But if it was up to me, in a perfect world, we
Sure.
would have done it Thursday after lift or during, whatever. We would have addressed it then. And that just it stinks. That's the way it was, but it just kind of happened out of necessity, not because I was afraid to talk to our kids or anything like that.
And I like to clear something else up. This town, everybody knows everything. You are not involved in the hiring of the new coach.
No, I would gladly help whoever that person is when the time comes, and obviously like the school is not going to ask my opinion. That would be a conflict of interest. I will have no say. But I think obviously you probably have heard names. I've heard names. It's whatever. But no, I'm not involved in that. That's Miss Ellis's job, and I think she'll do a terrific job finding the right candidate. I think I've been fortunate at Franklin. Tom Angelo and Kara were just amazing athletic directors, very bright, very talented people, and I think they both have really made great decisions and used good judgment. So I feel like she'll make the right decision and she'll lean on the committee, but I think she's a very good judge of character and talent. She's definitely a football. Right. I think all ADs kind of have their skill sets, right? And football is one of hers for sure. So I think that she's a football person, football mom, football wife. Her husband coaches, her son plays, and so she'll do a great job. But no, nothing. I have nothing to do with it. I don't think they want my decision, but but whoever does get the job, I'm happy to help with that transition and make sure Franklin football does mean a lot. This isn't a messy divorce. It's not. It's not anything like that. So whatever I can do, wherever I'm wanted to help ease that transition, I'm happy to do that.
All right, so let's go back to the past. 2 or 3 most memorable games for you.
I think I'll use an honorable mention first because it's also kind of funny. The very first game, Stoughton. Stoughton was a wagon. I'm a brand new head coach. Think I know everything, and it's 28-0 after the first quarter. And I'm pretty sure that I might get fired at halftime. And I'm not even totally joking. They might just not let me back out on the field. It was bad. We were a young team and all that, so I'll remember that game forever because it's just a great example of you can have all the answers or think you do, and you're just things don't always go your way, right? So it's very humbling. But every game that year we got a lot better, which is great. 3 most memorable games, just off the top of my head, and I might forget one. The first one is definitely the win against Brockton to win our first playoff game since '82. And our kids didn't even realize. I tried to downplay all that, but after the game telling them, I wasn't even alive in 1982. So that was huge. I'll always remember that game and the way our kids played. And, this is Brockton. This is this traditional power. They've got kids that look like just D1 athletes everywhere. And we beat them. And we beat them pretty handily. We out-physicaled them. We out-hit them. I love that game. Number 2, again, not really in any particular order, but when we beat KP that first Thanksgiving, because, not for nothing, I know at least speaking on my own sense, I was deflated after the Saturday Springfield Central game. Yeah. We barely practiced just because we had so many kids that left it all on the field. I was like, we're in position to beat KP, win a first league title since '09. But I didn't know. And then all of a sudden we're down 14-0, and you sit there and you kind of well, here we go again. And then we hit the flea flicker to Shane, and then the rest of the game I felt like we kind of controlled.
Yeah, the Lucini tackle at the end to seal it. It was great.
Yeah, Jack Marino.
Jack Marino, right.
Yeah. And then with Pookie singing the national anthem. Anyways, that game is always going to be up there. And then, probably a tie between the Springfield Central and the Zavarian games. I know those are 2 losses, but just those are 2. I hear from people all the time. They'll mention either the Zavarian game or the Springfield game, and they'll say that was the best high school football game I ever saw.
Yeah.
And just again, it's weird to put a loss kind of in there, but I just appreciate really, really, really good high-level football. Both teams in both those games played for us, and the opponent played at the highest level. We didn't win any, but I think that's what you want is those highly competitive games against teams you're not supposed to really compete with, and maybe certainly the first 2 years we weren't at that level, but then they play at that level, and have people just say compliment your players, compliment your teams, and again there's so many other games too, but definitely Brockton, definitely KP. Really, those two Thanksgiving Day games were pretty special. Both come from behind victories, and then those two high stakes playoff games were pretty wild as well.
I want to touch on the quarterback wide receivers that you've had, but I remember during that first year, since you hit on it, being at the Uptown Pub doing my football picks on a Saturday. And it was me, another guy, and a friend of both of ours.
I think I know the story.
The friend of both of ours is trying to convince us that I don't understand why we throw the ball and why we go out of shotgun all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to mention names or anything like that.
His wife helps us out a lot.
His wife helps us out a lot, but he wanted to go under center and ground and pound, and that's what we should do. And I think he thinks it differently, though he'll probably never admit that. Throughout your beginning through, I want to say, even Zabriskie at the end is a fantastic receiver.
He had caught 90 balls. He set a bunch of school records.
So you got Novi and Lenny. You got Nick and Driscoll. You had Tommy and Jake. And you had Jared and
Shane and
slew
Will
of guys.
and Will.
And then you had Jace and Luke.
Yeah.
And prior to coming to the Hawk was mainly a running league. We were the only team that passed.
Right. Yeah, Coach Sid kind of was one of the first spread teams
Yeah.
I remember.
And then we just took over the spread. Talk about that a little bit.
I think the first thing is just being committed to something. Just because we're in the shotgun doesn't mean that we're like a run and shoot air raid team, and just because you get in the gun doesn't mean you're not a physical running team. I mean, even the first year that we were here, Milwaukee, he had a really bad ankle injury against Attleboro. He ran for 200 yards.
That, yeah.
And then, by the way, we then, a team that really probably wasn't ready for this jump, we go and play Zavarian. And then we play Needham, who was the number 1 seed in D1. And then Braintree, who was a D1 playoff team that year. And then KP. So we finished with those 4 just great teams. And, probably we should have not made the playoffs, played 3 games to keep building, and then who knows what happens on Thanksgiving. Probably don't win it, but maybe. But anyway, my point being, Milwaukee had 900-something yards and really didn't play those last 4 games. So we had always, I feel like, ran the ball and focused on that. But our thing has always been about balance and trying to showcase a lot of different kids, threaten the whole field, make the defense have to play real defense and be accountable. And so I think we just stuck to that. And fortunately, we have had so many skill guys. I mean, that's the cool thing about lacrosse towns. And Franklin is a lacrosse town. It's a baseball town, too. But, those lacrosse kids, they run. They run really well. I mean, you look at Duxbury and what they run. Great lacrosse town.
Yeah.
So I think the talent, and then that's my background, too. But I think whatever we did, we stuck with it. We didn't second-guess ourselves. We tried to always, even if it was subtle and not noticeable to the public, tailor our system and our plan to what we had. We always kind of feel like we have the answers within the system. It's just who do we feature, how do we do it? And I think a lot of times too, people forget we had some really good defenses too. Yeah. Maybe not the first year we weren't very good. The second year, our defense was pretty strong. We didn't win a ton of games, but every game we were where did we lose? The Mansfield by 1. Was it 14-13 or 20-21? We lost to KP on a last-second field goal. Maybe it was 16-13 or something like that, one of those type of games. We had some duds and stinkers in there too, but we played some really good defensive ball games. And then I thought our defense was good in 18, our defense was good in 19, really good in 2021. We led the Hawk in points and defensive points, playing an extra game.
Right.
So that was cool. I think our system kind of took on a life of its own, but I believe that, if you believe strongly in something, gun or under center, it can work. I mean, obviously King Philip gets under center, and they do a great job doing that. Last year they got in the gun a little bit.
They got in the gun a lot.
And had a great quarterback who's going to New Hampshire. So, just got to have a belief, and you got to have something you believe in.
8 years, 3rd and 1, never went for it under center.
No.
And I think I want to, and that was a joke, because that was, you hear that throughout your entire tenure here. But I think where that really came to fruition was playing Brockton last year. And Brockton's running that kid all over the field. They get down 3rd and 1, and they went under center for the first time. The kid fumbles the ball.
Fumbled the ball, and
it's, and that's an absolute stud. So
he's going to Pitt. I mean, he's a Power 5 player.
You're taking over a new program. You did that 8 years ago. What are the hurdles?
And it's not obviously any disrespect to anybody. It's just it's year one. It's all brand new. Like whoever you replace, and obviously I have a world of respect for Coach Sidwell, but everything we did is different from him because I'm different. I'm not him. Whoever replaces me, and it won't be disrespect to me. They're going to put in and run the way that they want to run and the way that they want to go. So I think like that, like people say change the culture, and that doesn't have to be a negative thing. It can just be like, look, you know me well enough. I'm a unique personality. I'm who I am. I think I'm authentic in who I am. But like I'm not the same, and you're not the same, right? So getting that first part through is always kind of tough. And then there's always different expectations. It doesn't mean the expectations are necessarily better or worse or higher or lower, but like maybe the last staff kind of expected more of this, and that can be the same thing too, year to year. Like we've had years where our focus was classroom discipline, behavior in the school. Right. Other years where it was we got to get in the weight room and we got to lift. Other years where it was, we've got to develop more skill, or we've got to develop a mentality, so to speak. So I think that's what's hard is just everything's new, and I can remember probably the biggest change from year 1 to 2 for me, at least at Franklin, was knowing every kid, and I felt like I've always known like. That kid's really good at, like, all right, they might not be a great player, but they can do this one thing really, really well. Mm-hmm. And when it's year 1, those things are harder to notice because you kind of get more caught up in what's the height, what's the weight, where can we use this kid every down. You might not have seen enough reps to be like, that kid he's an okay player, but he's a really good pass rusher. Mm-hmm. That kid's like an okay receiver, but he's a really good run blocker. Like you don't usually pick that up. That running back's not explosive, but they're really good in pass protection. Like I was thinking like Sean Hofferty, and there was a couple years there where we had like Nally, Palmieri, Hofferty, and Quintina even, and it's like we had these 4 guys that were all pretty good, but so different. Like year 1, I wouldn't have understood that, but like Sean was so good in pass protection, and he was so good kind of protecting the football. And Nally was kind of the guy that could catch the ball out of the backfield, take big plays, and Palmieri was the fastest of the bunch. And then you had Quintina, who kind of did a little bit of everything, but sort of always had the injury bug. But yet, you put him in there, he catches a screen against Attleboro, and he goes 50 yards for a touchdown. So he kind of had that subtle explosiveness. But like again, when it's year 1, you don't know all the nuances, all the intricacies of each kid's talent. And I've always thought like we really pride ourselves probably the last 6 years in like playing a lot of kids and playing kids to their strength and using packages to sort of like. Lucchini playing tight end, even though he was really the 6th lineman. It's like, just put him at tight end, let's go 6th lineman. Would we have known that year 1, or would we have just kind of been like, he's the 6th lineman, he's going to back up these guys. So I think like knowing that roster inside and out is definitely a hard thing to overcome, on top of, kind of changing the culture to your culture, changing the expectations to your expectations. But again, that's the nice thing. It stinks because it's kind of nice not to worry about that in year 9.
Right.
But it's also a little bit fun too to kind of interact in a different way in a year 1.
Restart yourself.
Yeah.
That's all I've got. I'll give you the last word.
2 things. First, just thank you to so many people who made this program what it was, because they just supported us. And I've said it to people. There's a lot of bad press out there about parents in sports, about attitudes of kids not caring. That never was the case here. Now, I'm not naive to think that everybody loved me or that nobody second guessed it.
Right.
And maybe there was a time or 2 where I saw an email and I just set it aside and deleted it. Okay, but by and large, in 8 years, I can count on one hand the amount of negative interactions with players and or parents. I think that's huge, and I just think it speaks to like that's why it was successful. It was not toxic. People did not, and when I was hired, I know that I was not everybody's first choice. There were a lot of good candidates that went for the job. People thought that person should have got it, that person should have got it. They had no idea who I was, and they could have made it harder. They didn't. They supported it. They bought in. So I think that was huge. And then honestly, I just want to tell you too, like, thank you, because I view you as a very close friend, somebody I've always trusted, and I think I've communicated that with you. Like I know that you'll always shoot me straight. And not to say we haven't had a disagreement or 2. I can remember year 1.
After with the
music.
music.
Game, the music.
Hey, if you want to change the culture, you got to change everything.
Yeah. But it's. But the thing is like I think that there was an ability to also compartmentalize things.
Yeah.
Like our friendship never got in the way of this,
Right.
or announcing games,
Or my kids
or
playing.
your kids playing. Like those conversations never happened, and people might not believe that, and that's okay if they don't. But I just want you to know, like as a friend, I've always appreciated that, and honestly, like I've never felt that way from anybody. Like we've had dads on our staff, with like Mike Sosi and Benny Ryan or Jim Ryan,
Jim Ryan.
And Coach Watson and Packy, right? So we've done that, and Coach Carey too, you know, and all that. But like, it's just nice when people have good motives and they want what's best for the kids. And I've always felt that about you, but most of the people that have interacted with our program, they do genuinely care about the kids. It's not about you or me or my ego or somebody else's ego. It's about our program and our kids. So to you and to anybody else, like, just thank you guys, because that made this experience very enjoyable. And one last thing too, because I'd be remiss if I didn't say it, but like when everything happened with our boys and in 2017, man, just that was lights out. Just the support we had, and it made it a really tough situation a little more doable. So, thank you.
Well, it's been a great ride. It's been a great 8 years. I appreciate everything you've done for my kids. You've even dragged one into Bridgewater Rainham with you. That's on you. So that'll do it from the Railery with all the good people here. Come on down and have a beer, have something to eat. It's the coach Ian Bain, myself, Kevin Papa, and that's it for the Coach's Corner.